Hello everybody and welcome to our very last show and tell, where we ask our guests to bring something, tell us what it is and what it means to them, and that's where the conversation starts. So first of all, I remember 2 days ago saying in the show and tell, stay tuned to find out who Cassandra is, and this is the moment. Francisca.
Not Cassandra.
Not Cassandra. Francisca, would you please share with us what you brought?
Yeah, so I didn't actually bring any object. I decided to ask Cassandra to tell something because this was the premiere of Bilgi anthem, and of course she had to be in the micro state to celebrate that premiere. So I'm gonna show you the recording. And I have to translate it because it's actually in Brazilian Portuguese. Do you think we can, if I can stay here? Too short?
Oi, queridos, fala Cassandra. É um prazer estar aqui falando para vocês, celebrando esse grande e tão esperado hino de Bilgi. Nossa, tenho muita pena de não poder estar presente aí nessa conversinha, mas é óbvio que eu tenho que ficar no meu país, em Bilgi. Portanto, eu acho que a Cauchiftizi vai fazer um muito bom trabalho falando da nossa colaboração. Um grande beijo para vocês, galera.
Well,
Oi.
you can already capture the energy in her words. But yeah, she was saying that she feels a pity for not being here, but she has to be there, as I said. Yeah, she sends you a big kiss. It was a pleasure. They are celebrating gracefully. So yeah, and celebrating the artistic freedom. She didn't say that, but I should say that. Celebrating the artistic freedom, something that is proclaimed in Bilgi. Yeah.
Nice, thank you so very much for sharing.
But I should say something else about Cassandra, no?
If you want to, yeah.
And about Bilgi. So Bilgi is the smallest microstate in the world, just 18 square meters. And Cassandra is the only inhabitant. So imagine, the culture only depends on her. So she has to make the culture happen. And since it's a so small microstate, you cannot really make theater or big concerts. But it's a matter of reinventing herself, in this case, every day, which I feel very inspired by. What else? We met each other recently when I was composing the EP that I referred in the second episode, Funeral for the Cells. And then I went to Warhol Park to make this piece. And during the composition, I felt, let's call Cassandra, come here, please. Because I'm feeling the energy, and we are collaborating because she wants me to share the culture of Bilgi with the rest of the world, because that's not that easy. With social media, maybe it becomes a bit easier, but yeah, it's the only inhabitant, and how to celebrate it with the rest of the world. So I'm actually the medium here, and she's giving her first steps on music, so she feels more confident if she collaborates with me. I was composing on Warhol Park. I invited her, and suddenly all these sort of Brazilian spirit, because she's from Brazil, came into the piece, and the dancey stuff. And we felt, Bilgi needs an anthem, and I think we are celebrating the artistic freedom, all of that, so this should be the Bilgi anthem. And also, we don't think it needs words because, what Bilgi proclaims doesn't need words to say that. I think music explains better what we want to inspire. I'm saying we, because I can also come to Bilgi, but she's the only inhabitant. So, yeah.
Would be a very specific visit.
Yeah, I think people are not that lucky to come there because of the borders. So you need a visa, but how to get a visa if you don't have a Bilgi
To get a visa,
consul?
you have to be
Not yeah, but I mean, what is the word consulate? You need there's no Belgian made consulate here, so you cannot get really a visa or something. Yeah, something like that.
Tricky business.
Yeah. It's tricky business, and she doesn't want to open the borders just yet. Yeah, I understand. It's to save these freedom, this safe space, etc. So yeah, I don't want to judge her, Cassandra. No. Eu muito respeito por si, Cassandra.
Yeah, cool, very clear. Also, thanks for sharing what were the elements in the music that really were her initiative and...
Yeah, I mean, it's the Brazilian elements are part of the Belgian culture. She doesn't neglect her roots, but I think she just adds a new taste from her inner world and from my inner world too. So yeah, that's it. To understand the piece in that case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very nice. What I really liked was how you completely changed the context of the instrument.
Yeah.
The organ. Who would have thought? I would not have thought that you could make such incredible sounds with an organ.
Yeah, but that was part of the challenge because when we went there, we were like, oh yeah, let's have fun because me personally, I stopped writing for instruments, but I thought maybe this is a good challenge because I can see the organ as a synthesizer and then it's closer to my usual mindset and workflow. So I actually brought my workflow because Cassandra doesn't really have one yet. No, but I brought my workflow and yeah, I was composing on spot. That's why I also play the piece. And yeah, so I found the sounds while I was composing, the sounds in the organ and in the electronics. And yeah, it's unbelievable because the organ can sound in a way so industrial and so alien at the same time. And there's more stuff to do with it, so I wish I could come back again. And yeah, especially also to mix the piece differently because that's also a challenge. The room was also a big challenge. Because normally my music tend to require dry acoustics because I use very percussive sounds. And in that room was, how do we manage that? But I manage. And what else? Yeah, I just felt free. It's weird that I was so serious during the recording because actually when I was composing and rehearsing, I was like, yeah, cara, isso mesmo. Cassandra chegou, but then once you have the cameras in front of you with such a classical energy that doesn't really match with the spirit of music, yeah.
I thought it was a nice contrast though. It brought an interesting element out.
Yeah, but well, I couldn't do anything to change it. If I could, I would. Also because the place is full of names of men composers. The only woman composer is Gubaidulina. So yeah, it's
on the
personally it's not that inviting to me. I can say that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it really had a very nice contrast, bringing these two worlds together, and you have this fight, but also an encounter, and I think you really used the organ in the way you wanted to.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I think the first thing I did was finding the sounds in the organ because I didn't know the instrument, how I could control it. But actually it was quite intuitive because also the console has these pulls, these attack, the staccato and stuff. So it's not really the names you would use in a synthesizer, but you can understand. And I have a classical background, so it's easy. But yeah, the first thing was like finding the sounds in the organ and like a synthesizer with an very open-minded way. And I just didn't want to use the organ as usual because then I wouldn't be there doing the thing, you know.
I was wondering because of course you can use the organ as a synthesizer, but it is a very still physical mechanism. So I was wondering, were there any things you ran into, things that maybe would have been possible with the synthesizer, and you had to like see how the organ reacts to it in a different way, or?
I'm comparing with the synthesizer, but in the end, So there's some mechanical issues, of course,
yeah.
and
It needs some time.
I remember, sometimes I was like, no, I want to control this like that, but the organ is not reacting, or is not in a good day, or it just can replicate that, especially with pulse things.
Definitely.
And you cannot really control the tempo, although in the console you have the BPM. But yeah, it's kind of tricky. It can swing a little bit, but that's also cool, and especially when you see the video. So with the recording, maybe that's not so noticeable, but when you have the video, you really understand. Okay, because the organ is there; it's a physical thing. So
a
it's
moody
natural.
organism.
Yeah,
in the room.
Exactly. But I actually liked it, and that was part of the challenge. But yeah, I didn't freak out in a way. Thankfully.
No, we could hear that in the end result. You didn't freak out.
No, I didn't. I was very chilled. Impressive.
Yeah, cool.
What else?
Yeah. Should we move on to the object you brought us? Or the object?
Sure.
Or the subject? Or
The subject. I too had a piece in the organ park, in the Orgelpark. I brought a poem by Mary Oliver. The book's also really pretty. This is kind of a little bird drinking from a spoon that somebody's holding.
Oh wait, I didn't even see that.
Isn't that nice?
That is very nice.
Yeah. Well, the poem that I would like to read, Mary Oliver's incredible, all of her work is beautiful, but the poem that I would like to read is called Sleeping in the Forest. It's time to read a book, ladies and gentlemen. Sleeping in the forest. I thought the earth remembered me. She took me back so tenderly, arranging her dark skirts, her pockets full of lichens and seeds. I slept as never before, a stone on the riverbed, nothing between me and the white fire of the stars, but my thoughts, and they floated light as moths among the branches of the perfect trees. All night I heard the small kingdoms breathing. Around me the insects and the birds who do their work in the darkness. All night I rose and fell as if in water, grappling with a luminous doom. By morning I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better.
That is good.
She's wonderful.
Yeah. I really like this idea of with a lot of force and longing coming back to the place that you came from, in a way. As if the forest is the where you came from, and you are not able to return, but you want so very desperately. And
It's interesting, it's true. It also seems that there's this really interesting duality between the luminous doom that she describes and the animals that do their work in the darkness, and how the forest can be enveloping in a sinister way, but therein also lies its familiarity, and you need to vanish, so to speak, to, as she says, by morning I had vanished at least a dozen times into something better. That really grips me. Whenever I read this, I just think it is one of those things where you don't understand. Like, she's not concretely telling you how to feel better, but there's something there that teaches you.
yeah,
It's in the little words too. I don't.
and I also feel that it's not moving on to something else, to something new, but for me it really feels like returning to a place you've known that was better, or it has something nostalgic in it. I feel that. Maybe that's just the mood that comes
That's true.
across. Yeah.
And I think what's also interesting is that describes a certain kind of growth and progress without there being a timeline of growth and progress. Where I really like that she talks about how I rose and fell, grappling with this luminous doom, and she disappears every night, but then she comes back. Oh, should I do this? And then should I show the poem? Here.
Woo! Camera work. Camera at work. Cameraman at work.
But I really like that there's no, it's not malleable, the progress that she describes. And I think life is a bit like that. You don't heal or learn or figure it out and then have it figured out. You rise and you fall, and hopefully you wake up into something better every day. But there's this kind of, I don't know, I feel like it taps into something real without trying to tap into that. Like there isn't a beginning and an end to one's evolution, to one's journey with oneself. Plus it's coming from such a place of, it begins by saying, I thought the earth remembered me, she took me back so tenderly. We're coming from a kind of like womb-like place, a safe space, and I feel like we exit it and
to return and every
exit
day.
and it's falling in and out of that. And I think to me this piece, it was my first time writing for an organ, and it felt like I was in a candy store. As I walked in there, it was just, as you said, just playing. And what I did connect with was this big red old instrument that has at the same time so many modern features and all of these whistles and bells, and I was really drawn to that. Exactly, and it already felt so fantastical to me. And I started out with this old Russian story, but then it turned into, I think when you're playing, some of what you're dealing with comes out, and it turned into that. But as life often does, it doesn't really solve itself. It just rises and falls into something different or better.
And this constant back and forth of being in a safe space and challenging yourself again and coming back to what you know.
And I think that also becomes I think in composition it's a similar thing. It's not necessarily finding the formula, rather it's how you dance with the things. You know, it's the process, not the end game. But it's true. And I think this piece is all about that. There are many small no, I don't want it, but it's like this. I don't want to be lost, but I'm lost and I'm sad. I'm really sad. Oh no, what do I do now? Nah, it's gonna be okay. No, it's not. This thing.
Yeah, constantly giving in to the joy of the unknown.
Yeah.
And then the fear of the unknown.
Yeah, and I mean the organ park itself is such a mystical, magical place. You say something and it spreads around the whole room, and it kind of gives this element of, I'm very small and it's a very big world.
Yeah, and at the same time you're embraced.
Yeah.
I feel from left, right and front by these huge instruments.
Which is fascinating because it's interesting because the concept of the bear in the story of Masha and the bear is seemingly so sinister, but it's also, I think, just the way that we are small in a big world, we are big, we are parts of this big world, and it's enveloping us, you know. And so there's an element of, it's both a sense of familiarity and safety, but it's also sinister and scary, and it can be both at the same time.
How you can still master it.
Yeah.
Might be good to give a small summary of the story.
Right.
I know it very well because my sister was actually named after this little
Really?
girl. Yes.
I didn't know this.
Yes, it is true.
Oh wow.
So a little girl gets kidnapped by a bear. How was it? She runs off. How was it exactly?
I recently had a lesson. I recently had a lesson with a very good teacher, who told me that the original story, that there's so much meaning behind it that it could even stand in the way of whatever it is that you got or didn't get from the piece. So, if you'd like to hear the story, keep listening. If not, close your ears for a moment and then you'll have your reaction for all of time, I guess. But the story is as follows. It's a very old story. A little girl named Masha lives with her grandparents on the side of the forest, and one morning she's picking berries and she gets lost. And in the original story, she gets lost and she comes across a house that belongs to a bear. And the bear has said, I won't eat you under the condition that you stay with me and you cook and clean for me. So Masha says, well, I don't really have much of a choice here, so okay. But she says, in exchange, what I would like for you to do is... Anyway, this is actually where the story stops being relevant, because in this piece, what happens is that she gets lost and then she goes on an emotional journey. And she doesn't want to be lost. And she pretends that she's not lost, but she's lost, and she feels a rising sense of dread, and then when she encounters that dread, she encounters a lot of other grief and sadness, and basically the piece is her exploring this and reacting to it and trying to come back to the place that she was at the beginning, namely naive and light-hearted, and everything was okay. What happened? But you can't unfeel grief.
Yeah, the moment you've lost home.
Yeah. But we try to, which is also the irony of it. We push it away. And so the conclusion is also, she goes back to it being the show pony. Because I also thought, in the way in which problems don't really get solved, they just loosen and tighten. I don't think we ever rid ourselves of a mask permanently or find a home permanently. We just try to find coping mechanisms.
Yeah, and it's again also the thing from the poem, constantly feeling embraced by a situation or a place you're in, and going back and forth between that and being lost and not entirely feeling in the right spot on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, does anybody know what the hell we're doing on this planet? We say we're composers, that's our function, that's what we're doing, but now we're veering off into a different topic.
It's a great function, you must say.
Oh, for sure, but like within that function, you ever look around yourself and think...
I'm even glad you call it a function. Yeah. I'm so glad we have a function, you know.
True.
Yeah, thankfully it's not a mission.
Exactly.
Well, I mean...
A niche function.
Everybody creates their own, right? It's a coping mechanism. It's a coping mechanism.
And in the story, so the thing that actually happens after your piece, Masha tricks the bear, so he actually brings her back to her grandparents without him noticing.
Well, in the original story, indeed, she asks the bear to drop off. She says, okay, bear, I will stay with you, but what you must do is you'll come home one day and you'll find a big basket of meat pies, pirashki, and you must bring them on your back through the forest to my grandparents' house, but no matter what you do not sit down and do not eat a meat pie, because I will be following you on the tops of the trees, and I'll see you, and I'll know. And so the bear says, okay, he comes home one day, finds a big basket of meat pies, and what he doesn't know is that Masha is hiding underneath the meat pies. That's her plan. And so he takes the basket on his back, but then about 10 minutes and he goes, no, I will sit down, I will eat a meat pie. And Masha calls out from within the basket. She says, don't sit on a stump, don't eat a meat pie. I'm sitting up very high and I see everything. So he thinks, okay, and he keeps walking. It happens a couple of times. And then he gets to the grandparents' house and she jumps out, is reunited with her grandparents, and everybody lives happily ever after, except for the bear. Which I also thought about, in there are different renditions of the story, and old Russian stories tend to have very black endings. So the way that I was told was that the dogs ripped the bear apart. But while I was writing this, I also thought, I mean, if we're going to talk about abandonment and being scared and lost, I can imagine that the bear also just wanted someone around. And they weren't able to communicate this clearly. And instead, it turned into threatening, exactly, and scaring somebody into staying with you.
But
whereas the incentive there is
but he was asking her to cook and clean the house.
I mean, what are we talking about here?
And I see the bear as a man, as a toxic man. You know.
But if you unpack all of that and go like down into like the inner child, the bear doesn't even have to be a man or a woman. It's just a human soul that isn't coping very well with abandonment and loneliness, and isn't translating their true desires properly, which is probably just to feel nurtured and loved. But instead of saying this and going to a therapist and talking about it, what the bear does is says, Masha, you're going to stay with me and you're going to cook and clean for me, because then I know that, you know, I have you forever.
I think at least the bear shouldn't have any mental problems, because he's a bear. He doesn't contact with humans.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but without like the
human
human aspect.
Well, then this whole conversation is rendered useless because a bear can't talk.
Yeah.
I'm
To
sorry.
begin with.
But that's the story 4, of course, to give
whimsy. There's whimsy.
Yeah, to give a
Everything
character an animal-like feature, so you can pack a story into.
I just like to psychoanalyze and manifest on characters.
Yeah, and that's probably what they needed the bear character for. So they
Like archetypes.
So they didn't have to take a human, and you maybe would perceive the story in a very different way if you did know it was a man.
It was a man, yeah.
Exactly.
It was a man, probably.
I think
mean,
it was a man. It was a bear. Like, a bear is very masculine. An archetype.
Yeah.
Although bear mothers always rip
Different
people apart if they come
But that's
to...
fierceness.
Yeah.
That's got to protect the cubs.
Exactly. I'm for woman bear. Female bear. So.
Oh yeah. Yes. Good talk.
Masha and the bear, yeah.
Yeah,
And you focused on this lost...
I just
Masha,
noticed that when I was telling the story, it provoked things in me, and I went with that, and it turned into my story.
That is about the story, and I'm very curious, how did that musically translate?
This was a very instinctive piece. The motive at the beginning for me represented a very like da 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 da, like a little girl skipping through the forest, and then slowly it becomes skewed, and she tries to keep going, so the motive stays, but it slowly becomes darker and more confused, and then
Maybe
the
even
beat changes.
this very uncomfortable happiness.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also
Forced.
like a forced happiness.
Yeah.
And there's also a movement in the piece called denial and delusion, because it's this interesting form of happiness where you're trying so hard to ignore everything because that'll make you feel better, but you know that's not the reality. And there's this ironic, I think everybody's probably felt it at a certain point, where you know something is not right, but you aren't ready to give in to that, and so you try to just be like, no, everything's fine, we're good, but you feel it in your body, and right after that, normally there's a snapping point where you have to confront the pain and the sadness. And I think that's where the earnesty comes in.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, what do you do with that? On that note.
That leads me to one last question, maybe. Is music there to, as a composer, put your own emotions in? Is it there to make the audience feel emotions? Doesn't it have anything to do with emotions? Maybe at all. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that one.
I think we are on the same page in this.
Yeah? What's
Maybe.
your-
No, because my music is very emotional, and I already said it in the last... It is. And it's also... I want people to feel emotional too. If they can take the journey, well, that's awesome. I don't mean that they have to feel the same, but well, it's very emotional. And also, we like in the classical modern music, you see that sometimes they discard the emotions or certain emotions, and that comes from a legacy, maybe from Second World War. Maybe I'm not saying this correctly, it's just my observation and my way to look into the history. But and I don't connect with that kind of music, so when I'm not making a point or an argument, never mind. Yeah, my music is very emotional, and if you can feel emotions because of that, that's amazing. I'm sorry, I'm not being that
it's
true. It's today. I'm not.
It's very clear. So emotions on both sides, just not necessarily the same ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is.
And use your imagination, because I also have narrative in my music, and it tends to be very visual too. Well, I see it as so.
Yeah.
This is an interesting topic. We spoke about it recently. My instinct has always been to use music as an exorcism of kind, where it just comes out indeed, and it's also a way for me to process the feelings. It's always been that for me, which is why it's always been so precious to me, because it's my safe space. Everything comes out. But what I notice is that there's a different part of that I would like to explore more. It's also why I'm at a conservatory, why I'd like to treat it as a craft, and that is taking the exorcism and processing it, as in, there's a difference between, I think, feeling the feelings and something that comes out of that through that immediate expression, versus feeling the feelings and then transforming it into something new. And I find this a really difficult thing to do, because you have to also transform it personally. And that's a tricky subject. You have to stand outside of the pain, outside of the feelings.
Outside of emotions, maybe, because feelings and emotions are different things, right?
True. But outside of the internal state of being is what I'm getting at. To express the experience in a way that can be, to express the experience through craftsmanship. And I would like, I don't feel like I'm, that's very tricky for me still, because I tend to sit in the experience still. I'm very sensitive and I feel everything intensely, so it's hard to do that, but that's something I would like to explore in the coming years. I think music can play any role that you need it to. That's the joy of it.
That's true. It's very, very different from composer to composer.
Yeah.
And I like what you said about imagination, because for me it's really important that the things you put out there can trigger associations that you as a composer maybe have nothing to do with, but you're so glad that it can make connections in other people's brains that are new to you as well.
I mean, and that can be the music or just the sound itself, because I have friends who tell that they actually care more about the sounds, like, oh, I listened to that kick, for instance, and we try to imagine an object for it and draw it or something, so that's very cool. Yeah. But I also liked what she said, and I think also music, you said it's therapeutical or exorcism thing, right? And I like it when I sit and make music and I just discover something different for what I'm feeling. Like, I wasn't really finding the words to catalog them, and maybe that's a lack of emotional literacy, but you can actually get more emotional literacy through music and the compositional process.
Well, here's the thing. Wittgenstein said a lot of really interesting things about this. He said that when we communicate with words, we're reliant upon the associations that the words have, and there's only so far in which words can communicate our true deeper meaning, whereas sound is so ambiguous insofar as that it has more space to communicate. It has the potential to communicate a meaning that words can often cramp.
because this is still an abstract to think. Although you
Exactly.
study psychology, psychiatry, it's still abstract stuff. And we try to use words to explain, but maybe you don't understand me because,
Yeah.
well, the
Context.
vocabulary, even for me have a different meaning or something like that. But music,
It's
not
magic.
so much. Yeah.
Yes.
That's also a nice way
To end, right?
describe the whole festival.
Music is magic.
Music is magic. The ways in which you can touch one
What
another.
a wonderful. Yeah.
It's incredible.
Mm.
And every composer that has been on this festival, I found, has brought so much nuance and magic to whatever it is that they were doing. And there are many different things that people were doing.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's very diverse. It's actually good.
oh, do you have questions? To
Oh, yeah.
whom have they been sent? To Frieda.
Could someone read them out loud? Or, a better idea. We will have a look at the questions and we will be back within a few seconds right after the teaser. Yes, hello and we are back. Thank you so very much for your questions. I received them now, so I will read them. We got a question from Sigurd. For everyone, I've been very happy to follow some of the composers and the process of making these great pieces. So fun to see the final results after so much time. How does it feel for you now? After so much time. I think after so much
process.
Yeah, maybe after
What
so
does
much
it
work.
feel like after it's done?
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I don't feel that I'm in the end of the journey because I don't know. It doesn't seem that it's the end of a journey. It's really weird, or maybe because I'm avoiding
Ever
the
continue.
next journey after school. No, but it's like this is my life, right? So it's like. If I wasn't graduating, probably I would do the live sets. Well, I wouldn't do the organ piece because I wouldn't have the same opportunity. But maybe I already released that energy, and it's not. I'm not feeling that right now. After I recorded the piece in the Orgel Park, I was feeling very, very happy. Also for the people I met there, they are very, very kind people, and yeah. But the release was already
Great
a few weeks
experience,
ago.
but
Yeah,
it goes on.
and I mean, I don't feel that this was a specific journey. Like I made it through my graduation because I would do the live set anyway. Of course, I had this deadline, but I
That is
don't
the
know.
difference.
I work on this stuff every day, right?
Mm.
I'm sorry, maybe it was disappointing the answer.
Yeah,
but,
I know. Life goes on. Life goes on.
That's my point of view.
Yes.
Um,
Feeling relieved?
well, I mean, I'm not graduating, so I
No,
suppose
no.
this.
But after
in terms of this is actually a very good question for this piece because it was a big deal to me while I was writing it, and it felt like I was quite proud of it. But then within a week after I had finished it, I had already gained new insights, and by now I'm already like.
Next one.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
and that's also a good thing because there's more work to be done. But it's a nice balance between and feeling proud because I know that it is. I am happy with it, but also I'm excited for the next ones, and I love the Orgel Park, and I really hope to come back. Yes.
Okay, then I will go to the next question. Still from Sigurd. Thank you, Sigurd, for so many questions.
Yay, Sigurd.
Will we see more of this free conversational show and tell format after future concert stream events from the composition department? Definitely. We are working on a podcast.
We are!
Exactly. We always have a guest, and then the students.
We've been recording podcasts, indeed, in private for now, but hopefully soon they'll be ready to release.
Once we finish the jingle.
We record, exactly, and also edit the whole thing. But we've been recording them with teachers in our department, and we hope to expand it beyond the teachers into other interesting figures outside of the school even.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah, so more stuff coming. Stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook on New Music Arena. And exactly. We have the New Music Arenas. I'll also talk about it a bit later, which are concerts we organize throughout the year. And we will always let you know when they happen. And then one more question. This for Jasmine. Sam, which flavor of meat pies is the bear's favorite? Sam, do you see what you did?
Sorry, it's not corona. By the way, we all got tested.
That is true.
Which is why we're
very
like
safe.
This. I just choked on my spit. I apologize. We're fine. We're good. What flavor of meat pie is the bear's favorite? Probably little girl.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
But who makes those?
The bear probably eats. Well, I mean, there are many ways to analyze this. We could say we are all the bear and the little girl within one. The bear could be the society around us that can sometimes feel constraining or menacing. The bear could be a home that you long for, but is also not good for you.
No.
Many things. Many things. The bear's favorite flavor of meat pie is whatever you want it to be.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yes, that is the answer.
Belgian made.
Nice question.
We have a question from Ramin for Francisca.
Oh.
How was your experience with combining organ and electronics, especially since we know organ with the huge history behind it? I'm trying to understand the structure of the sentence. So this is such a new listening experience. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. No. I kind of answered to that question actually. Mm-hmm. So if I went there to make music that you already know, I wouldn't come. So I decided to give it an opportunity and to feel completely free. And it went cool anyway. But it was weird to mix organ with electronics. I mean, it's not that tricky. It's just the kind of electronics that makes the process harder. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but anyway, it's how it is. So I was rehearsing with the electronics in a PA, and it was very messy, like reflections all around. But I recorded with headphones, so of course I had to tricky a little bit the acoustics of the electronics. To blend it, but that was the harder part of the process. Because the problem is the room. It's not the organ itself.
It's the
exactly.
reverbs in the.
But I mean, I actually connect with organ sounds. Like I've been using organ in leads in my tracks previously, so that's why I probably went for doing this project too, because I think it's very expressive and in a way. It can be dramatic, but once I found this samba-like thing, I was like, okay, but you can also play samba. Oh, really? And the articulation. And also, I think it was a happy marriage because I also found these cool sounds in the organ, and they actually connected with my sound world. That was very intriguing. Some of the sounds in the organ, I was like, oh, I could do this in my electronics.
How did that happen?
How did that happen? And it's cool because it's an acoustic instrument doing it. So it was a happy marriage. It's It's a bit of a pity that the room is a bit reverberant, but that's a question of taste and my aesthetic too.
I think it worked out very nicely.
Yeah, and the legacy, I didn't give a shit. The legacy. Like,
Amen.
no, I didn't. Like, I don't. What am I going to do? Am I going to compose like Bach or Messiaen? No.
Yeah.
Or João Pedro Oliveira. It's a Portuguese composer. No. So I have to try to be myself and bring the Pilgrimary culture to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well said.
Exactly. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, irmão.
Exactly. I think this was it. No, we have one more question. I'm getting signs.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. From Arjen. This is also for everyone. Do you try to find a balance between putting your feelings into your music and making a free space for people to put their own? If so, how? Is that even a thing? Good question. I feel we were talking about it a bit.
Yeah, but I think perhaps it serves to be said that to a certain degree, something I've been struggling with is that I talk about the feelings a lot, whereas if you talk about it, it already clouds the experience.
It also already found a format. It already
Exactly.
found boundaries in a way.
Yeah, whereas it's so much the joy and the struggle is that people's experience of a piece is informed by their own experiences, and that's the point. When you write a piece, it's yours, but the minute it's outside of your system, it's not yours anymore. And I do notice that the more I talk about the feelings in it, the more I go home and I think, damn it. One of my teachers, Wim Hendricks, said something that I really loved, that I put on a post-it onto the wall, where he said, don't say it, put it in the score and let the musicians communicate it, which I think is a really nice thing to think about.
Yeah.
Unless it's poetry.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you have a huge love for poetry, you always have to choose.
Well, here's the thing. I think in poetry, words are used differently. They're used to provoke and to invoke and to paint images rather than
And
also
also orchestration
to
of
explain
words.
and justify. You know,
Yeah,
the way that
exactly.
she provokes our experiences with these words is so.
It's not this, therefore that. These clear connections that language, of course, always puts on our thoughts. Yeah,
It's different.
because that is very convenient. Otherwise, it would be hard to understand each other.
But it's ironic. We've been spending the last 4 days talking, and there's so much joy and a spreading of knowledge that comes with communication. It's really important. And to talk about the feelings, so also. But I guess after a certain point, it's also just better to stop talking and to just listen or make music.
Yeah, that's what I tell to my friends.
Shh, let's make music. Okay, that is a wonderful ending. Shh, let's make music. No, I really feel that way.
Yeah.
So,
You can re-listen the episodes.
exactly, yes. Thank you also very, very much for listening, tuning in, looking at us even. It's a stream. Let's see. I wish you all a very, very wonderful evening. Feel free to watch or rewatch all the material from the festival on our website, composersfestival.nl. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram under the name New Music Arena. And you'll be updated about the new music arenas that we organize, and also in here, the next Composer Festival. And I think it's time for me then to say goodbye.
Thank you.
My queridos.